Hey guys, as you know, I am facing some network issue. That's the reason I couldn't organize an live session today. And to compensate for it, I am trying to record this video wherein this would also have the same content I was planning to share during the live session. So, as I promised, I that we will be doing more technical stuff from today onwards. So to start with, and I'm assuming you guys don't have, a few of you don't have any background of Java, Eclipse testing, and also don't worry. I'm going to assume that none of you have any understanding of it, and I'll be doing it from the very basic. So till yesterday, we had this um, session on where I explained about the curriculum course and where to find what, etc., etc. Now we also discussed something about testing, perhaps, but don't worry, we will not go into details. Rather, we will go into those details later. But for today's session, I am going to focus more on to get you guys started with Eclipse and Java, because that is something which is of utmost importance. That is the starting point. So I'm trying to give you a starting point, and you can actually do these things step by step. So I'm going to talk into creation of a project and multiple ways of creation of the project. Then I'm going to show you creation of a package structure. What is a package? How to create a class, how to add a method, and how to execute your program. So it's sort of a hello world program or hello world session I'm going to show you with some little bit more details while we move along. All right, so first and foremost, you guys need to install JDK, and you need to install the Eclipse. If you haven't installed Maven yet, that is still fine. But these two things, that is JDK and Eclipse, you guys must install. Otherwise, you will not be able to see the view which I am seeing right now. And we discussed in the previous call that you have to install Git as well. But again, if you couldn't do it yet, it still is fine for the sake of this video at least. But eventually you will have to do it. So you have these four things in your system: JDK, IDE of your choice. When I say IDE of your choice, it could be Eclipse or it could be IntelliJ. Third is your Maven installation is must, and fourth is your Git. Okay, Git, as I said, if you couldn't do, still is fine. But JDK and Eclipse, you have to install these two things. Enough said on the installations. If you face any issues while installing, then you have to post in the group. Tell me what exact issues you are facing or exact errors you are facing while installing it, and I could try to help, or Sarang could try to help you out. Anyway, to start with, I need to create some software, right? That's where the whole story begins. I need to write some code. Now, to write some code, you have to have a text editor, as simple as that. So you can have a notepad, you can have a text simple.txt file you have in Windows, notepad.txt, you can write your code there, and then you can save those files in a specific specialized syntax called as .java. The way we have .txt file, the same way a Java code has to be written inside a .java syntax file. Okay, now, if you're not using any IDE actually stands for Integrated Development Environment. So if you're not using any IDE, you can still write in a simple plain text editor software like Notepad++ or Notepad, and you have to save those files in .java, and then you need to use command line tool, right? Command prompt, which you usually call it, a black window, to execute that Java program. So that is something you can do. The idea is Java doesn't need Eclipse. Okay, so Eclipse is just an environment, and it makes Java development easy. That's why we use it. So the way you write your code, the way you organize your different pieces, different lines of code or Excel file, sorry, different lines of code or .java files, different package structures, the way you execute them, the way you visualize something, right? The way you debug a program which is having some error and you want to solve the errors, all of that can be facilitated by a software called as IDE. But having said that, you don't, or Java doesn't need an Eclipse to run. Java can very well be executed by the command line syntax. It has the command line library, and you can use that to execute the program. And in short, Eclipse also does the same. It just does it behind the scene. You don't see it, but it exactly does the same. So the point I'm trying to make here is Eclipse and Java or JDK are two different things. Don't try to understand it as a one thing. Underlying is JDK, Java Development Kit, used for compilation of your code. And I'll talk about what compilation and all. But to compile the code, we need JDK, which you already have installed in your system. And to develop in a more efficient way, you install a software, or also called as IDE, Integrated Development Environment, in the form of Eclipse on top of it, and then you use Eclipse. So you don't see Java, you don't see JDK here and there, but you see Eclipse, which actually is your single point of access for a Java program. I think I have over explained this Java and Eclipse thing. So let me just move forward. So now, instead of digging very deeper into Java and JDK and Eclipse, let's do very simple activity, right? Let's try to create a simple project. Let's just see how to create a project. Once you see a window, once you install Eclipse, what are the next steps you should be taking to actually execute or actually write the program and execute it. So that is what I'm trying to show you now. So first and foremost, once you install Eclipse, it will ask you for a workspace, right? Workspace in Eclipse is nothing but a folder where Eclipse will Eclipse will save all the projects. So for me, my workspace is somewhere. So I have a lot of many workspace. Workspace is nothing but just a folder where you would see some files or folders, and those folders represents a project, right? So if, for example, if I go to this location, user Akash Eclipse workspace priority or temp workspace, this will be just a folder structure in my system. For in your case, if you're using Windows, you will see something like C or D, whatever folder you have selected for a workspace. The moment you open the Eclipse, it will actually ask you for a workspace. You can choose to point it to any drive you want to, right? So workspace and Eclipse are related. Workspace is a folder, just to summarize, workspace is a folder where Eclipse saves some of its configuration files, as well as whatever project you're going to create, it will go and create a folder corresponding to that project, and it will save the corresponding files inside this. For example, what you see right now here, they all are nothing but a project, and each project actually represents a folder structure inside the workspace. So there will be a workspace, and inside that you will have these many folders present there. Okay. I can actually show you exactly how it looks like. So this is my Eclipse. Eclipse is pointing to a workspace, which is this workspace. So I have actually initially, when I started my Eclipse, I pointed that my workspaces should be this folder. Inside this, I have these projects. So what you see here as a project in Eclipse is actually nothing but a folder inside the workspace. This is my workspace. Inside that, Eclipse has created these folders, which actually represents these projects here. Okay, and inside each of these folder, you have these files, which I'm going to talk about. So these subfolders, and in subfolders you have subfolders and subfolders, and then you have a .java file, right? That's how basically Eclipse organizes your project. Okay, and you don't have to go and create these folders. Eclipse does it for you. So all you have to do is to create create a project with some name, and Eclipse will create a folder inside the workspace. Okay, I think this workspace stuff is clear to you now. Now, instead of going through these projects, let me just show you how you will go and create your own project. Okay, so let's just do that. Initially, you will find when you open this Eclipse, you'll find some welcome window and all those things. You can cross all of them, or you can let it be. What you need is a project explorer, this one. And if you don't see this, also don't worry. The moment you create a new project, this will automatically will be popped up. So let's just go and start a new project. Okay, so I'll go to file. When you want to create a new project, this is how you're going to do that. The look and feel might look bit different because I am on a Mac system, but more or less the menu item will still be same. So if I want to go and create a new project, I'll go to file, click on a new, and I will have some option. One is project, example, and other. You will also see some more. So don't go and create a project. Rather than we want to create a Java project, because Eclipse is not the tool which is only reserved to be for a Java project. You can also do some more thing. A simple project is also possible. A project, as I said, simply means a folder in Eclipse language, right? But we want a Java project. So what we'll do is we'll click on other. There will be a simple wizard will be open. You will search for Java, and you will see something like as Java project. Okay. Then you click on next, and then you will see another window. Here you have to select. First of all, you need to add a project name. So the whatever project name you're going to give here will be your project name displayed here as in the Eclipse X Project Explorer, as well as you will also see a folder being created under your Eclipse, whatever uh, uh, workspace or folder workspace you have chosen. You will see a folder there as well. So I'll show you that once I create it. So when I do a project name as, let's say, my first project batch 11, let's say, and then let's say, by the way, all of these things you can choose not to change. You can leave it as it is. Now this is your default location. I mean, you can do other things as well. For example, you don't want it to be saved inside this workspace. You want to save it somewhere else. That also you can do, but for the sake of simplicity, don't touch anything else. Let it be the way it is. If you're doing it for the first time, if you are curious, be my guest. Do whatever you wish to do it. No worries. But if you want to, in the first attempt, you are very beginner. You are afraid of making mistakes. So don't mess with it. Just keep things as it is. Just change the project name. Then you can choose to click on finish, or you can go to next. In the next window also, we don't have to do anything else. Here it's just saying, Eclipse is just saying that, okay, you are having this project, do you also want to have a src folder, right? So I'm saying yes, we need src folder and all those things. Again, I'll not touch anything. I'll just click on finish. That's it. Here you have an option to add some libraries and all those things. You'll see there are some JRE library, 1.8 library already being added. Again, don't mess it up. Keep it as it is. I don't have to touch anything here because we are doing it for the first time. We don't want to have lot of errors in the beginning itself. So just keep it as it is. Just click on finish. Then it will say, do you want it to open some perspective? Perspective is just the windows, the tabs which you see here, right? These tabs and windows you see here is called as perspectives, right? So you say yes, open perspective, because I am doing a Java program. So it's saying kind of project associated with the Java perspective. Do you want to open a perspective which is specific to the Java environment? I will say yes. So I'll say yes, open perspective. And what you see is the perspective. I already had it, so there's nothing being changed. But let's say if you're doing it for the first time, you only see some welcome screen. You will not see much. So in that case, it will come handy to you. You'll click on open, and then you will see a project package explorer, and then you will see something like this. Okay, then if you go and open it, you will see a library called as Java 1.8, and then you will see a src folder, right? This is how you create a project. And as I promised, I'll show you that if you create a project in the Eclipse, in the workspace, it goes and creates a package for you. Sorry, a folder for you. Inside this, you will see two folders. One is bin, one is src. I'll talk about the significance of this bin and src in a while. But this is what Eclipse gave you when you created a project. And apart from that, it has also associated a library called a Java SE 1.8. Now, this is something of high importance, right? Java library. Now, if you remember, we in the first session we were talking about JDK and JRE and all those things. And there's a different distinction between these two, JDK and JRE. JDK refers to Java Development Kit, and JRE refers to Java Runtime Environment. Now, if you are having a code, when you write a code, you write it in a plain English format, isn't it? Now, whatever you're writing, computer doesn't understand that, right? So we have to have a translator which will read that code, English written code, and it will convert into a machine level code so that machine can understand it and execute it, right? And that's where compiler comes into picture. Now JDK has a feature called as compiler, right? What does that compiler does? compiler reads the code which the user is writing. It will read it, it will try to understand it, and it will compile it, right? After compilation, it will convert it to a specialized format called as bytecode, right? So let me open a small PPT for you guys to explain this. So this is the PPT I was talking about. Remember, this is what we have been going through in the previous session. Now it's a very small PPT which I have, which a small slide which I have it, which speaks all. Now there are three things in Java, a very fundamental thing I'm trying to explain here. Three things in Java. One is Java Development Kit called as JDK. Then we have JRE, Java Runtime Environment, and then we have JVM, Java Virtual Machine. Now the JDK which you recently installed is required if you want to compile a code. Okay. Second thing, if you want to run the code, then you need to require Java Runtime Environment or JRE. And where does that code gets executed? That component is called as Java Virtual Machine. These are just bifurcation of what you actually have inside inside the software which you recently installed. When you install a JDK, everything comes with it. When you install a JDK, you get a JDK, that is, you have the capability to compile the code. You automatically get a JRE, that means you are capable or capability to run the code, and inside which you have a JVM, that is the placeholder where the code actually gets executed, right? So these are three things: JDK, JRE, JVM. Now, when you install JDK, or when you say I'm installing Java, in generally speaking, you say, or someone asks you to install Java. So when you install Java, there are actually two things: either you are installing JRE or you're installing JDK. When you install Java, more or less it means you are installing JRE. That means a capability to execute a program, but you don't have the capability to compile a program. So if, let's say, you create a software and you want that software to be executed on someone else's machine who doesn't have to actually compile any code, the person only has to execute it, right? If that is the case, the other person does not have to install JDK, because he don't want to actually compile a code. He just want to execute it. So if someone needs to only execute the code, all they need to install is JRE. And in your case, you are the developer. In your case, since you want to compile, you want to create a project and write the code and compile it and run it and all those things, you would need JDK, right? And there's simple line written here: JDK converts source code to bytecode. So what you write is actually a source code. When you try to run it, it gets converted to a bytecode, and that bytecode goes to the JVM, and inside this JVM, that bytecode gets executed. Okay, enough said. Now let me take you back to the Eclipse editor. So right now, since you are a developer, right, you're supposed to be writing a code. That means you need to compile the code, and that implies that you need JDK, and that's the reason you guys install JDK. Now, once you have this project ready here and you understand what is JDK, JRE, and JVM, next step now here is to create a code or write some code. Now, to write a code in Java, you need a file to be created. And secondly, you need that file to be created under a structured folder, right? A folder, again, in Eclipse or Java language can be translated to a package. So what I'm going to do here is, I have a folder, I have a project, then I have a SRC folder. Inside this, I'm going to create a package. Now package, as I said, implies a folder. So don't worry if you don't understand what is a package. A package is simply a folder. I'll show you that as well. When I go and create a package, let's say I'm giving a package as, let's say com.vision IT, for example, and I click on finish, I see something called as com.vision IT here. But if I go inside, I'll see a subfolder. I'll see SRC. You see SRC here. I also see SRC. Then inside this, I see a com. You see a com dot, and dot here represents a slash. That means a subfolder. So each dot, if you see a dot in a package, it actually means a subfolder. Then I'll say go inside this, I'll see a com. Inside com, I have a folder called as Vision IT, right? So this is what I was trying to imply, that what you see here is nothing but the folder and directory and pack and folder and directories, and actually that translates to, this folder translates to project, and this represents package, and it corresponds to the folder. So this actually is a folder, or project name actually represents a folder. Inside this, these are the packages. Packages represents a subfolder created inside SRC folder. You see here, there is a SRC folder. Now, next step is, once package is ready, next step is I'll right click and click on a new class, and then I have to give it a name. I can give it any name, but good practice is that you give it a name which starts with a capital letter. You see, it says the type name is discouraged. By convention, Java type names usually start with an uppercase letter. So it's better if you give it uppercase, and rather I'll say my first class. And then you have some options here, which is what kind of method you would like to be, what kind of method you would want Eclipse to auto generate. So I'll say you have the option for some abstract methods, constructors, superclass, and all those things. I know these. If you're new to Java, these are jargons you won't understand for now. So let me just do a public static void main, which I think you all must have heard about during your college days. And this is a specialized method which actually acts as a starting point for a program, because see, any program which you're going to write has to start from somewhere, and program usually runs in a sequence. Assume they runs in a sequence. So a sequence has a start. For example, if I say 1 to 10 are steps, then it has a start. Start is 1. So everything starts from 1. So the same way, if you're writing a code, there has to be a starting point. So starting point in this case is public static void main. Okay, so this is the method which Java compiler automatically, or Java runner automatically starts executing. The moment it finds it, it will start executing it. So I'll click on finish. The moment I do that, I see something here. Let me just quickly explain what this is. So I see a package com.vision IT. This represents what folder this class is into. So if I go here again, if I open this, I see a class, a file, my first class.java, and inside this class, it is mandatory to write under what package this specific class file is. So this class file is present inside a package called as com.vision IT. You don't have to write full path here like SRC and all those things, because that is not required. It automatically determines, because all the class files usually reside inside source. So this is by default. So you don't have to mention it, but if you have another subfolders inside or sub package inside, you have to mention it. So package com.vision IT. Who wrote this? Eclipse provided this automatically. So you don't have to actually write it. Eclipse, once you create a package, once you create a class file, Eclipse will automatically do it for you. Now next is your public class, my first class, and inside this you have a method. Now let me go back to our original slide here. Now this is what classes and objects looks like. Okay. Now there are some rules of writing code in Java. One of that rule is you cannot write loose code. You cannot just write any code anywhere. There is a predefined structure, right? And that predefined structure has to have a component or a feature called as class. And inside that class, you need to have methods. And inside those methods, you can actually write your code. But before we actually go towards writing the code, let's try to understand what is classes and objects here. So classes, if you see on the screen, classes are a category, right? For example, car is a category, okay, or a template, but these cars are its corresponding objects, right? For example, I am an object of a class called as human. So human is a class. That means it's a category. I belong to a specialized category called, also can also called as class or classification or class or category. It has different names. Template, it has different names. But it just represents a concept. Okay, and concepts has implementations. So concept here, in my case, in your case, the concept here is that we are human. That is a concept. But human is abstract. Human is not identifiable. right? You are identifiable. You have your own unique properties and representation. So I am a type of human, but I have my own properties. Just similar to here, when you say this is a person, the person represents a class or a category, and these are the corresponding objects or representations of the class person. This is the relationship between classes and objects. So in Java, you always create or write your code inside classes. And if you want to run a class, you want to do what? You want to instantiate it. And that instantiation will actually create that particular object, and that objects actually gets executed. So class is not get does not get executed. The objects are the one which actually gets executed, right? Now, as I said, everything has to be written in the classes. So you have to create class. Inside class, you have two things. For example, you have the class person, and inside the person, you will have two things. One thing, first is the attribute. The attributes. What are the attributes? The characteristics and traits which that specific class can do, not can do, which it represents. Attributes in my case can be my height, my skin color, my hair length, my gene, my DNA value, right? My unique ID, my salary, like things which represent, not my salary, the thing which represents me, basically. The way you know me, right? Based on how you see me, or what are my unique identifiers, those are actually called as attributes. And what are the behaviors? Things which I can actually do. So each object has its own value for each attribute and shares the attribute names and methods with other objects of the same class. So the idea here is, if the class name is person, then person class has these many attributes: name, age, sex, height, and behavior, the thing which I am capable of doing. So all class will have these two things: attributes and behaviors. Here, if you see these two persons, they're two different persons, they have the same, they inherit the same, not inherit, they have the same set of attributes but different values. So attribute name here is name, but the value of this attribute name is Harry. Age is 35, sex is male, and the height, and etc etc. And same way, same thing goes with this. But they are also they both also share the same method. So eat, talk, sleep, etc etc. So the behavior is also shared by the objects of that classes. Okay, now instead of, let's not go to inheritance for now, let's just try to do these things what we just did, and we try to do this here. Okay, now this is your class, and as you know, class usually has these two things, right? You have attributes, and then you have behaviors, also called as methods. This one can also be called as variables, or rather instance variables. All right, now let's try to create a small class, right? And let me take an example of, let's take a small calculator, for example, right? Because I think people can relate more to a calculator example. Now, if I go and try to create a calculator, I need to do what? I need to create a class. I'll go create a class. I'll say this is an addition. Okay, and then finish. So I have a class. Now this class can have two variables, isn't it? So that is, sorry, it can have two things. Any class can have two things. It can have variables or attributes, and then it could have methods. You can try with some other classes. Maybe you can try to create the person class as well. It's up to you. I will still recommend you guys to go and try to create this on your own, but I'm just giving this example for now. So variables, I'll say, and this addition, as name suggests, this addition is actually what it is. It's supposed to be generating, or supposed to be having a functionality where I could actually add two numbers, right? So I'll simply say int a, or I'll say variable 1, then I'll say int variable 2. Now what these values are, int here represents the type of the variable. Now there are different types of how you can go and create a variable. There are some primitive types, there are some user defined types. We'll not go into those details for now. We'll just try to keep things simple, because this purpose of the session is to get you guys started. And to get you guys started doesn't mean that you have to know everything before you actually you create your first class. So it's better you just start with whatever you know. So just follow these steps which I'm right now telling you. So int variable 1, int variable 2, and then we'll create another int result. So what this represents is that there will be a number whose value will be integer. There will be another value whose value will again be an integer, and there will be a variable which also will store an integer. So the idea is, if I'm saying it is an integer, that means I cannot save any other value. By the way, there are different kind of data types: integer, string, char, boolean, and all those things we'll talk about later. But for now, just focus on that. If I'm saying int result, that means I'm defining this result, I'm declaring this variable to have only integer type of value. Okay, so now I have variables. Next thing what I'll do, I'll say, okay, I want to have a functionality, or I have to have a behavior in this class which will actually add those numbers for me. So what I'll do, I'll say public void, I'll say add numbers, and then I will say result is equal to var1 plus var2. Okay, and then I will do one more thing. I'll create another, or rather, instead of creating another behavior, I will simply say this is what it is, and I will try to return something. So I'll say return result, and I will write here int. So let me explain this. Now I am creating a method. Now method usually, as I said, is a behavior, but there's a way how to write the methods. One way here is, or not the one way, there are different ways of writing it, but it has to have some specific syntax on how you're going to write your method. So the syntax which we have here is that, first let's start with this public. Public represents that this method can be accessible from outside. So if I'm going to create an object of this, it's going to be accessible. That means it is going to be called from an outside program. Now what do I mean by this? Again, I'll explain in a while. Next is integer. It means when I call this number, call this add numbers method, and when this method actually does its operation, it would like to return some value. Now what value it will return, that depends on what is the outcome of this line, and I have to write an explicit statement here stating that this specific method or behavior want to return something. That means I want to return the operation result. And since I'm writing return in result here, and since result is of the type int, I have to mention the return type here. So this actually is called as accessibility or access modifiers. That is, who can call this method. This represents what can be returned from this method. And as you know what this is simple name of the method. Now, if I want to call this method, right? Let's say if I want to call this method, let's say how you do that. So now I will go here. By the way, if I just try to run this program, nothing would happen. Nothing will be executed. And you can try that. If I do a right click on this, do a run as, I'll not get a run by Java program. Nothing will be executed. Why? Because for this specific class, there's no specialized method capable of doing that. That means there is no entry point, because there is no public static void main. A class with a method doesn't guarantee to be executed unless it has a public static void main. So what I'll do, I remember we created this class which has public static void main here, and I'm going to use this class to execute this program. Okay, now how I'm going to do that? I'll come here, I'll simply write. Now I'm going to talk about how we go and create the object. So this is just a class. It has no because as you see, the way we were talking about here, we have attributes. This is the class. So all we have is this, but we don't have these values, right? We have attributes, that is we have int, var1, var2 result, but we don't have the values. That means we haven't instantiated these classes as of yet. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to create an object of this class. What I'll do, I'll click on addition. Rather, I'll write on addition object name. So this can be anything. This has to be the name of the class. Then I'm writing new keyword addition, and that's it. That is how you go and create an object. You're going to use new operator, name of the class which you want to instantiate, and if you notice, the name of the class is also name of the file, and that is mandatory. Of course, there can be multiple classes in the same file, but one has to have the keyword as public, and that the file which has the name as public has to be the name of the file as well. So public class takes the, in Java, public class also has the same name as the file name, right? So addition.java, addition.java is the class name. And I'll go here again, addition object equal to new addition. I'm writing the code inside the main method. So that when I execute this class, the public static void main will be identified and will be automatically executed. Now what I have to do is, so I need to do what? I need to add two numbers, right? What I'll do, I'll come here, I'll write object dot. When I say object dot, I'm going to get some values here. So I'll say var1. This represents what will be the value of that specific variable. The same way here. So I have created the object for this, and then I am using the object to set the value. So right now I'm doing what? I'm setting the value, or also called as initialization of the variable. So far what I've done, these are just a declaration, and this is the method definition. This is the declaration, and this is the method definition. What I'm doing right now, I have created the object also called as initialization. Now I am, or instantiation, basically instantiation of the object. Now I am initializing the variables. How? I'm saying object dot var1, I'm saying value as 5. Then I'm saying object dot var2, I'm saying value is 6. And then what I'm doing, so I have set the behavior of the class. Sorry, I have set the attributes of the class. Now next thing I will do is I'll say object dot add numbers. The moment I do this, if you press control and hover on this, you will see something. It will convert into a link. You go inside, you go to the method, and then you know what exactly is going to happen. This variable and variable 2 is being set, and when you call this, these values which are already being set here inside this object will be getting added, and the result will be returned, right? So if I go back, this will perform an operation of adding these two numbers, and the result will be returned. Now there are multiple ways of fetching the value. One way is I'll say I'll go and create a variable called as, let's say, int result, and I will say result is equal to, that means if I want to capture a value coming out from a method, can actually use a variable, and the variable will actually go and save the values written by the method. So this is going to return a result, and I'm saving the result, sent by this inside this variable. And then I should be printing it as well, right? So I'll say system.out.print, I will say print ln maybe, and then I'll say the result of addition is result. So what will happen? This will be a string, and then this symbol is used for concatenation, combining these two things. Result will be an integer, this will be a string, and when I say this, it will concatenate both the things and it will print it. Let's just see what happens. So when I say right click on run as, and now I'm getting run as Java application. Remember not to do these two things. You will not see this, but you will see run on server. So better you do Java application, and I'll get the values. Result of addition is 11. Okay, another way of doing it is, let's say I comment this, and let's say don't have it, and I also don't need to have this, let's say. Now if I want to print this, the another way of doing it is, I will just copy this here, then I'll simply say plus, and I'll say object dot result. This will also have the same impact. Why? Because this is going to save, this operation is going to save the value inside the result variable. This will be a result variable, and this variable is actually will be doing what? This variable is going to save the value and keep it for the lifetime of the object. right? So when I say object.var5, it's going to set a value here. But if I do object.result, it's going to give me the value which the result variable of the object holds. So if I do a right click and do a run as, I'll get the same result. All right. All right. So this is it for how you're going to create, or how you're going to create your own first Java program. Now don't stop it. Don't stop here. Keep going on. That is, keep creating more classes. So create addition, then create subtraction, then create multiplication, then create division, and then try to call all of them from a main program. Okay, you can also choose to add more. I would recommend you guys to have more classes. Try to create, because if you're doing it the first time, it's very important that you do some hands-on on this. Don't just stop at creation of addition. Create at least 5 to 10 classes. Addition, a calculator has a lot of functionalities. Try to create a scientific calculator, right? See how many values are special, different kind of operations required. For example, addition, here we are doing only 2 values. You can try to do with the 3 values. What if you want to do 5 values? What if you want to do 6 values, right? What you will do, try to do all of that, right? That will be your assignment. Now there is one last thing I want to explain here, that is, what are the other ways of creating a project, right? The other way of creating a project is using a Maven project. So I'm not going to go into detail of that. I'll just show you, for the sake of the people who find this all very basic. That means you already have some exposure of Java, and you, let's say, don't have much idea about Maven and all. So I'm just going to show you how you're going to create a Maven project and try to do the same in the Maven project. So how you're going to do that is, you go to File, New. So I am just telling a different way of creating a project. So one way of creating the project is this, the way we have done it, simple plain Java project. But there is another way of creating a project, that is called as Maven project. So I'll go to File. I'm showing that now. Go to Other. Then you type here Maven. Then you see a Maven project, right? You go and click on Next. Then it will give you this option. Make sure you click on Simple Project, click on Next. You're going to see something of this sort. I'm not explaining all of that. What is it? What is group ID, artifact ID? That is something for later. When we start with the Maven project, I'm going to show you that then. But for now, just keep it simple. You write Vision IT. Just do as directed for now. Vision IT. Artifact ID is actually your product, is your project name. What you see here, right? So you give it a name as my first, or rather, my first project batch 11. Okay, my first Maven project batch 11, and that's it. Click on Finish. Don't do anything else. The moment you do that, you're going to see something like this. If you're doing it for the first time, maybe you will not see these views. Maybe it will start downloading something, and you will find something being downloaded here. It will give you some, this kind of folder structure will be displayed. Give it some time, let it download things, and after some time it will just give you this view. Then you go and create, because you're going to create a test project. I mean, you have the option to create wherever you want to create, but try to create in the source test Java, right? There are 2 folders where you can keep your Java files. Don't worry, we are going to talk about Maven a lot in the later sessions, because all the framework, everything, all our work is going to be on Maven. So this is going to be repeated a lot, but just try to create this for practice purposes. So you go and create a package inside src test Java. Create a package. I'll say com.vision IT. Inside this, you can go and create your classes the way I created, right? Everything then remains the same. Addition class, everything will remain the same. Then you have the option, or you are this take it as an assignment to create a full calculator program, like some subtraction, then multiplication, division, exponential, log values, percentage, average, factorial. Try to create all these programs in this assignment. So this assignment we are going to do for next 2-3 days, and I've just given you a start point how to do that. Coming days, you're going to see a full-fledged calculator program, and that will be your assignment to start with Java. If you have any questions, you have the group, you know where to ask questions. You have the group, you have the GitHub forum from where you can ask. Let me know if you face any kind of difficulty. For now, a few of you don't have access to GitHub, so you can choose to put it on the WhatsApp group. I'll try to answer as soon as possible. Try not to personal ping me, rather put your questions in a group so that I and Sarang can actually answer it. Thank you.